Good morning. If you have never been to 1 Million Cups, quick thing, we have an app. So go and download our app. You can check in. You can give feedback to the presenters and comment on anything that you would like to say. As far as the format for 1 Million Cups, we're going to have two presenters today. Each of them present for 6 minutes, and we have expert panelists to go ahead and ask them some questions, and then we open up the floor for you to ask questions. I'm going to go ahead and explain who everyone up here is. We're all the organizers for 1 Million Cups. My name is Nicole. This is Caitlin. John, who just got engaged. Billy, Tyler, Kyle, and Courtney. Thanks for being here. I'm going to go ahead and let the expert panelists introduce themselves as well.
Okay, screen. Okay. Good morning. I'm Becky Johnston with Critical Point. We're a consulting firm that works with businesses to help them profitably navigate complex markets with well-designed and well-implemented marketing strategies and product launches. Happy to be here this morning.
I have three things that I do. Actually, the first and most important thing is I'm a Hoosier. You know, nobody gives a shit about that, but I do. Three things. I run Dury Vision, which is a refractive eye surgery center on College Boulevard in Overland Park. I'm a small business owner. I'm the co-owner of IdleSmart. Some of you all may have heard of that. It's presented a couple times here at Million Cups. Jeff Lynch is my co-owner, and Ryan Bennett and a couple other folks are the key members of that team. And then the third thing is I do public speaking around the country. Thanks. Oh, Harry. Can I go by one name or do I need to do two? Harry Campbell, thank you.
Thank you. So without further ado, we're going to get started with routine success. Please welcome Bob and Matt.
Great. Good morning, I'm Bob Etzel, and I'm CEO and founder of Nascent Stage Technologies. We're a company that's a Missouri LLC. We own companies like iSocial and Routine Success. We're going to be talking to you about Routine Success today. And Matt Gunter is the person who created Routine Success. We'll be talking about that extensively. So with the clock running, let me get started. Oops, there we go. The problem that we're going to be addressing today is autism. And so it's in the news. CDC said it's more prevalent than what we ever expected. 6.5 million people in the United States have autism, 25 million globally. Just to put that in perspective, 26 million people live in Texas. So it's huge. The thing that we're going to be talking about today is that 80% of those people will not be employed. They won't be employed because of a socialization issue. Either they're on the bottom end of the spectrum and they don't talk, or they're on the high end of the spectrum and you don't know Asperger's, you don't know for sure what they're going to say. So socialization. And the other one is they need a lot of structure in their life. What do I do next? Where do I go? Matt discovered, even his son, the order I put my clothes on. So at Nascent Stage Development, we deal with both of those issues in helping these children. I'm not a researcher. The research that we have for autism comes from the University of Missouri Columbia campus, and for the autism, the big autism center that they've got there, Thompson Center for Autism. So we're the business people that are transferring that technology. Jumping into the issues that you've got, and with routine success, you have children that don't want to go to school, they don't function in school, they don't want to go to a job. One of the reasons for that is that they need help during the day. What do I do next? A tablet doesn't work, it's too intrusive. You can't use a smartphone in school, Post-it notes don't work. Matt found that the Pebble watch was perfect. A smartwatch is great, gives you messages, allows you to communicate back, And it's subtle, it's discreet, so nobody knows what's going on. There are three big factors that we work with because it's a comprehensive solution, it isn't just a watch. Over here, you've got the program at home and with the clinician. It's prescriptive. What do we need to do today? What exactly is your schedule? You need to go to your locker at this point in time. Here's your combination. It's reassurance, so it's not scary to go to school. You've got the watch itself, two-way communication now. And the third, which is very important, it gives you reports. How are we doing? Did they go to class? How did we do today? How does that differ in terms of how we worked yesterday? And it worked. Matt had it, Kansas City, Missouri parochial schools using that Pebble watch. And here's an example. Here's how you add a wear. Here's how you build a routine. Here's the child's schedule. Here's a weekly look at that schedule and what they're going to be doing. So that's the last slide in describing it. Basically, it works this way. You've got the program at home. The child feels a buzz. It's a smartwatch. And then the child touches that watch and says, yes, I made it. I'm still wearing my watch. They're getting reports. And here's how I'm feeling. There's an icon from sad to happy in terms of how they're doing. From a business perspective, oh, and there's the reports. From a business perspective, I know everyone's going to say you're trusting them with a watch. It's insured. And we're also working in terms of how can we get this covered with insurance. But that, if they lose the watch, there's an insurance policy for that. It is a SaaS business model, $19.95 a month. All of this is in the cloud. One change to the software affects all of the programs. That's our background. We're more technologists, so we understand that very, very well. Customers, we're selling to parents, and we're selling to professionals. So that speech-language pathologist is recommending that to use the watch that you get going with that. Went too quick. The last one is very important. It's one of the more important things is I've got a partnership, an exclusive agreement with Sandbox & Co. You've never heard of those people. They paid a lot of money for all the digital learning properties for Pearson Learning. 20 million people a week in over 200 countries visit Poptropica, Teacher Vision, Parent Vision. I've got an exclusive contract to provide all the autism material for them. Last month, starting Autism Month, 2 million teachers started seeing our brand and 1.5 million parents saw them. So it's a big opportunity for us. In terms of problems that we've got and things that we're working on, there are three things in common in everything that we do with our startups. One is they involve autism. So that's an issue. Two is we're acquiring them at a very good rate for us because something's broken. But it's something that we have expertise. We know how to fix it. And so, and we also have great technologists who are bringing new applications in to help them. In this case, the Pebble watch was terrific, except its manufacturer discontinued. So now what we're doing is my programmers are coming in and converting that to an Apple Series 3 watch that we'll be able to use. In terms of, we've got the prototype that we can do in 3 months, and the other two things that we have, pretty much marketing. We need to make sure we get the e-commerce site going for the website and getting the marketing and sales, getting that started up. So that's my time. Thank you very much.
Great presentation. Thank you for being here. Do you have intellectual property associated with this application?
I'm going to say no. That's always the first thing that you look at. And we do have intellectual property rights from the University of Missouri on other things. But on this one, not really.
Okay. And can you speak to the data that's being generated? Is there value beyond the connection, the peace of mind with the parent, so that maybe use it for additional research longitudinally, or reports that can be used by the physician, or, being able to look at certain medications and how effective they are?
Well, great question and what you've got. Now, not that long ago, I was brought in by KU to be the CEO for 3 years to start up electronic health records company for mental health. So we really understand the value of treatment plans, progress notes, all of that material. So you're absolutely right. It's an excellent question. And some people say the real value is in the data itself. And so we're accumulating that, and we understand that. And as we've been advised, make sure that you get the rights to that, the first client, that you can use it. Aggregate data, very important. From a customer or parent perspective, though, we also know that they really like to see reports, graphs. How are we doing? We want to share that material in a common format with the schools and everyone else. So data is king in terms of what we've got.
And to add on to that, I assume that the data helps to have proof of success, because proving that this works is huge, because then I have a question about insurance and or who pays for a watch and the $20. So what about proof of success with regard to the data?
Well, you always do that in terms of how are we doing. And so looking at them before and after. We have anecdotal information that Matt can share with you in terms of the parents love them and it's working great, but we want some statistical information as well in terms of control group. They're not using the system here versus these, dropout rate, incidence of, it's called eloping, which is horrible with these kids that walk away, and it's #1 cause of death with children with autism. They walk away from school. It's horrible. So it keeps track of that. So we'll be able to watch those statistics as well.
How about insurance? Is this something that is covered by that, or do you have any history with that?
The history that we have is we're watching the industry like cell phones and things like that that are also insured. And so that's our experience with that. And the
I mean
consumer
health
pays for it.
insurance to try to get the app paid for.
With that, I do have experience with that, and I know it's a long road to do. So our chief general counsel, Steve Kearney, is one of the 2 people who worked with Autism Speaks nationally in order to get autism covered for health insurance, but I'm not counting that on in the beginning. I know that that's a very difficult program. So in the beginning, it's going to be a higher strata, people that can afford a $150 to $300 watch. And hopefully over time that technology and price comes down, but we're going to be addressing a certain market in the beginning that can afford that watch.
That's fair. I have a good friend who has a son that just graduated from high school, and he is on the spectrum. And it's fascinating because what they're trying to do is figure out ways to make him a part of society in a more normal way. And this is the kind of thing that you're talking about here, right?
It's amazing. And so one of the things they have to deal with is their fear of failure. I can't do that. They don't want to go to school. They're worried about it. I can't get a job. And yet if you've got a gentle reminder that's letting you know, here's what you do next, it's okay. And the other thing is important, you have a tether back to that parent. And it's okay, they're safe, we're doing well. It's a tremendous bond, and able to get them to go to school, to work in society. I mean, it's tremendous. So we're doing a lot of good here, but we're also getting them into society so they can start programming. With unemployment under 4%, these people still count in terms of being disabled. And yet, so for 501c3s, they need to hire so many people. High-end autism is a great source of people that can work in a hospital, do that same thing over and over again, if we can give them that virtual tether or virtual touch that allows them to do so.
I guess I would just add that the original genesis of this idea was, this was based on a program that really worked for my son, I would say. He's a very smart kid. We're very blessed in that regards. He just needs a little extra help in terms of staying organized and figuring out what he needs to do next. So through his therapies, using routines like this where you give him very prescriptive step-by-step instructions on how to do tasks until they become routine, we had a lot of success with that. The problem is when you send them off to school, and as they get progressively more independent over time, you need a way to kind of replicate that in a not socially awkward fashion. So that's really where this came from.
What age it would be appropriate?
So, great question. We've been at this for about 3 years now. So, my son is now 12 years old. He'll be entering 7th grade. So, he started using it in 3rd grade or so, and it was very appropriate at that age. I will say, as he gets older, I feel more of a need for this as opposed to less. You know, next year he'll be changing classes, and the higher degree of autonomy that's expected in a school setting, I think something like this becomes probably more relevant as opposed to less.
All right, with that, we're going to open it up to audience questions. So if you have a question, please raise your hand, and we're going to give Matt the first shot.
Hi guys, nice presentation. A couple of quick questions. I'm curious how you're doing your software development and where you are in that cycle, if you're to your MVP or if you're beyond that. And also, it sounds like you're focusing on the higher end functioning autism kids. Is there also some use for this on the spectrum with ADHD or Asperger's?
Yeah, let me take the second part of that first, if I could. My son is on the high functioning side. He also has, I guess you'd call it a comorbidity of ADHD, which you see a lot. I think, you know, if we drew the pie graph, there was a high overlap between ADHD and high functioning autism. So absolutely. I mean, I think anyone who needs a little extra focus and reminders from time to time could benefit from an application like this. So, and then I'll let Bob take the first part.
And the first question is, where are we at in development on this? We're fortunate in that really the programming and a lot of the decisions were already made. And so now, nothing like somebody who doesn't program saying it's going to be simple. But anyway, yeah, it's the marketing guy, right? But it's not that difficult to do. Of all the programs that we've got a a lot of them. This one's the simplest, and it's about a 3-month program. About $70K, by the way, is what that costs. The other thing that'll happen, because I've given these presentations before, somebody is going to think on the way home, if you're thinking about this, what about people with Alzheimer's? You know, there are a lot of people here. This is larger than just autism. This is a virtual tether. It's prescriptive. The doctor is saying you should be doing these things. You know, you should get up out of your chair. You should move around. Did you take that med? And so it's a two-way link that reports back. I'm focusing on autism because that's really our main focus of what we do. But it's really anyone that needs a virtual touch or virtual help during the day.
Question in the back?
When you mentioned schools, I was thinking about my son who has ADHD, and when he gets tools such as putty or different things to fidget with in school, there's a lot of teachers that really have an issue with him doing that. Do you anticipate needing more school buy-in or teacher buy-in at any point? And how would you go about doing that?
Yeah, good question. I guess I'll take a crack at it first and then let Bob. So, you know, our experience here in Kansas City is that the educators have generally been very supportive. You know, I think the nature of this product is that it is not quite as conspicuous as some other alternatives that are out there. It doesn't require the student to have a smartphone present anywhere on the facilities. Doesn't require obviously a tablet or anything. So it is, it's fairly less intrusive and conspicuous, I would say. Now, it isn't going to be for every kid, I would mention as well. You know, there are different types of ADHD out there. Some kids it will become a distraction for, and this is not an appropriate solution for them. If you're like my son and the struggles that he faces from an ADHD standpoint, his problem is not distractions, it's more of he needs reminders. So it'll vary from student to student on the effectiveness of this. I would anticipate we'll run into some resistance from some school districts, but most diagnosed kids do have a development plan, and this could be worked with the school through that development plan.
One quick thing in terms of the teacher's perspective, if they don't have the watch, they're going to be taking them, answering questions all the time. So this really saves the teacher a lot of time themselves, because that child's going to be more self-sufficient. They know to go to the locker. They're not asking them so many questions. So it really benefits the school and the teacher.
We have a question in the back.
Hi, my question really has to do with privacy and security of the data. How are you going to assuage a parent's concerns about, how secure the data is and who can have access to it? And can only the clinician make updates to the schedule, or can anybody do it?
In terms of privacy of the data, it's locked in the cloud, it's secure in terms of what you've got. In terms of the data that you're acquiring, it's not super sensitive in terms of what's going on. The name, the fact that you're working on it, so it'll be secure, it's in the cloud. We protect that with our EHR data as well, so we understand that part of it. So very secure. I mean, we can go into a discussion in terms of aggregate data and the value of that and how it works. At this point in time, we're locking it up. It's individual. One of the real benefits of this package is that the second question was, who creates this schedule, this routine? It's very simple. I could show you the slide of what Matt did, but the parent can do that. They go in, it's drop down and menu, and I'm just clicking blanks. Here's the way it goes, very simple to do. We want the clinician involved there as well, because they're working with that child once a week anyway, coming to the office. Now they've got a tool saying, let's do this. Your reminder for this week will be turn taking. I want to have something pop up and allows you to remind you to take turns, or it's playground is coming up. Here's something I want you to do on the playground in terms of introducing yourself to somebody or whatever. So clinician input, parent can put that schedule in themselves. It's very, very simple.
Another question in the back.
So I was curious, the tether you have between a parent and the child, and I have some experience with ADHD children and very little with autistic children. You have a schedule set and a routine that they can check in, but if anything were to have a hiccup with the technology that's built into something, say the Apple Watch, do you have something planned in the future for you can read their elevated heart rate, that they know something is changing, and notify the parents that they might have a panic attack, something along those lines?
In phase 2, if you use a smartwatch, it's just incredible in terms of all the data that it's getting. And so right now we're going to focus on the version 1, the features that we have. But you're absolutely right. You could be monitoring the heart rate just the same. The other one that I think is important is, are they wearing the watch? And did they take it off? Well, that's a signal. And the other one is, you've got geolocation as well. So when I'm running, it knows right where I'm at. You want to be careful with that in terms of, somebody said the security of data. I mean, how you want to keep it secure, but you could actually have geolocation. So here's where they're at. Like I said, eloping, huge issue. And where are they? What's going on? And number 1 cause of death, children with autism. Eloping, number 1 way that they die with eloping is they drown. They end up in a river, lake, pool, something like that. So hate to have something so sad that we deal with, but that's another thing that it can do. But we'll work on that on phase 2. But
I would just pile on, as Bob said, version 1 really has an analog version of that, if you will. So you as a parent or caregiver have the ability to send a mood check, essentially, to the student at prescribed times that really just checks in to see how they're doing. That's where, as a parent, you could get feedback on whether a new med is helping, whether certain times of the day, right before lunchtime, right before the end of the day, they're feeling a lot of stress. It's obviously self-reported data back from the student, but it's an analog version of that, and the ability to build onto it at some point in the future.
There's always going to be something. There's going to be a hiccup. So I was working with North Carolina special school districts, and when they had the student walk out a month or so ago, it really bothered some of the special needs kids, because I'm supposed to be in this class at this time, and what's going on, and so it caused confusion. Without the watch, that child's going to have that same issue in terms of what's going on. So pretty rare that you have something extraordinary like that happening. but there'll be some outliers like that.
Question towards the front.
I understand this is a separate standalone watch for this purpose. Have you guys considered just developing an app for a smartphone to do the same thing? Is that possible?
So the question is, what about an app? The way it's being developed, it really is an app. And so, but it's, I always want to have a comprehensive solution. So it's an app, you'd get it, it's going to work on that smartphone. I don't have to install anything, it's from the cloud. But it's not a standalone app, it's something where I've got guides and instructions from therapists. There's a therapist eye. How do you do that? I could have a schedule in Outlook, but it's not going to help you with your child with ASD. So same thing with the reports, but you're absolutely right. Starts with an app.
Question in the center.
So I have just two parts to this question. The first one is just to clarify, GPS location ability is on level 2. So that's not.
And to really be specific, it's not level 1. So
okay.
it's down the road.
So the ability for a parent to physically see where their child is at a given point is not currently a feature. Okay. And then my second question is, as a mom of 2 kiddos on the spectrum, one of the things that we struggle with frequently is sensory issues. So are there options on the watch in terms of ways that it notifies the child or alerts the child if the buzz is something that is not comfortable for them?
Maybe there's something else. With me, it's just that gentle buzz. But you're absolutely right. In everything that we could do other things with virtual reality, for example. Nothing can touch their heads. We can't do anything like that. So we really need to watch that. And it's a spectrum. And some kids are fine and some kids aren't with that. I would think that if you've got a light that's lighting or sound, then that's going to be an issue. So at this point in time, it's just that gentle buzz, and that's it. So
yeah, I would just add a little color to that. That's excellent feedback. The original prototype that we built on the Pebble smartwatch, the developer decided they really wanted to make sure kids did not miss the vibration, so it really rocked them. And we got that feedback back from parents, and they were able to turn it down a little bit. So we're going to have to be cognizant of that. That's very good feedback.
Question in the front.
In the same vein, is there any concern about alert fatigue? I know that we tend to get desensitized to pop-ups, push messages, even buzzing on our watches, and even with a high sensory child or adolescent, young adult. Is there any concern that we start to ignore those messages?
I think that is an issue, and that if you overdo it, I mean, there's helicoptering, and I don't even know what you'd call this, because you're connected to them. And so if they're getting something all the time, I think it's a very good point. And so you've got to have a balance, and that'll be in the guides themselves and finding what is the best way of doing that so that you're not overload. That's a good point.
And I would just add that I think that's one of the reasons that the reporting on the back end is valuable to a parent or a clinician, because I think that helps you diagnose whether that's happening, if just the reaction is ignore, 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 ignore. I will say, our son, it's difficult to have the end of the day conversation about how was your day. You get a lot of fine, good, thanks. So that reporting is really meant to facilitate a conversation. And I think if you saw 5 routines that were ignored in a row, you'd realize he might be overdoing it a little bit.
Final question, what can we as a community do to help you?
For us, I think there's a couple of things. One would be, as Matt's done a very good job in terms of coming up with this beta group. And so when we bring this out, we'll be looking for people that will want to buy that watch and try it for us. We could use a very small round of funding, seed in terms of doing the programming for us. That would be another way that you could help us. we are set up with Jim Baxendale here, with so many other people in terms of tech transfer, that Kansas City is really a good environment for this. Mental health-wise, health-wise, programmers, everything else. It's a very fertile ground of people that can help us. So, Matt, anything else that you would say?
No, I think we were looking to do a more robust, I'd say, trial this coming school year. So with our next round of the product, so I think we would welcome additional families to participate in that as well.
There are great help when you look at the original slides that we had up here. Eric Diebold's here. Hey, Eric. He did all of that work for us, image work. He was one of the founders of NetChemia. So there's 32 of us working on this project in Kansas City area. So anyway, we love it, and hopefully we're going to do a lot of good. Thank you so much for being here and listening to us.
A big round of applause. Thank you. All right, we're going to do a quick announcement about launch code. So Will, Helena, and Kelly, please come on up.
Hi, good morning. I'm Will and Kelly and Helena. We came on board in Q1 of this year to launch Code on its third year in Kansas City, which is a nonprofit built to develop the tech workforce, sort of one software web development job at a time. I'll let Kelly introduce herself, talk a little bit about the academy side of it.
Good morning. I am the program director at LaunchCode. I handle all of the education side of things. And all of our programs are free to our applicants. So we train them to go from knowing nothing about coding to being job ready as software developers entirely for free. We get about 500 applications for each of our classes. At this point, we have room for about 100 of those applicants to have a spot in our class. So we are, shameless plug, looking for a new location for our classes, looking aggressively for a new location. So if you have any thoughts or contributions to that side of things, I'd love to hear them. But yeah, we are training LaunchCode wide. We've placed 1,169 people as of yesterday across the nation in developer jobs, helping fill that gap. You want to say hi? Yeah. Helena does not want to say hi. This is Helena.
Very quickly, after the 6-month academy and professional training, Helena and I are the ones that get them into the workforce. We work with employers to build up internship apprentice programs, and we can talk more if you're interested. Thank you guys, and have a very good morning.
And it's everybody's favorite time of the week. It's Mug Club. If you've been to 1 Million Cups at least 10 times, please raise your hand. If you do not have a mug, leave your hand up. Do you not have a mug? You didn't raise your hand, though. You said today was your 10th.
Good morning. Please tell us your name and why you come to 1 Million Cups.
I don't know if it's actually 10 or 9 or 10. Yeah. My name's Chad Gertis. I'm with Renaissance Financial. We do investments in insurance and just come here to meet new, interesting people and businesses. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to get started with our next presentation. So the ladder anchor is a ladder safety device that attaches to the base of extension ladders. So please give a warm welcome to Joe with the Product Foundry. Ladder anchor.
Yeah, we good? Sure, you hear me okay? Yeah, cool. All right, well, I guess I'm started here. So thank you for the introduction, John. My name is Joe Locido. I'm the owner or patent holder for the ladder anchor. Just a real quick show of hands here. Who has either fallen off of a ladder or knows someone that has fallen off of a ladder? Well, this is surprising. About 2% of America either has or knows somebody, so apparently that number's risen a little bit. But to go through the numbers real quick, every year 165,000 injuries occur due to ladder-related falls. This is broken out between at home and on the job, but the point still stands that over 300 people a year, or 300 injuries a year result in fatality, which is a quite large number. It's the number 2 highest or most fatal workplace injury out there in the workplace today. If you go by a case-by-case basis, your average cost or medical expense per ladder injury is going to be about $110,000. This equates to about a $24 billion cost to the American economy due to medical expense, time lost, workers' comp. The list goes on in terms of expenses that will accrue based from a ladder injury. To try and personalize this, about 2 years ago, I had a neighbor who fell off of a ladder, and he ended up breaking 2 of his vertebrae, and he's obviously been out of work since that time. And kind of inspired by his injury is what drove me to look into this problem and figure out why ladder falls occur and what's really the driving factors that play into them. And what we found through our research is about 40% of all ladder-related injuries are due to the ladder either slipping or tipping out from underneath the climber. Based on this number, it's a pretty solvable issue. I mean, you're trying to keep a ladder in place. So what we designed and developed was the ladder anchor. And what the ladder anchor is a oversized multi-surface base that attaches securely to the bottom of your ladder. And it's used on both extension ladders and A-frames. But to go through kind of some of the design features that we wanted to incorporate, first and foremost being oversized, it's 600% increase in surface area based off of your normal small ladder shoes that come on your standard extension ladder. This directly correlates to a 600% increase in resistance to slipping out from underneath you. It also, being wider than your extension ladder, increases your resistance to tip by over 30%. And then another design feature we wanted to incorporate was multi-surface features, and one being the cleats, which are used on mud, grass, dirt, carpet even, and then the other side being a non-slip rubber pad for use on tile, hardwood, concrete, or any outdoor solid surface. Operation's quite simple. It's really a 3-step process, and I'll kind of walk through it here real quick. Someone actually I had it sitting over there, and someone played with it earlier and figured it out themselves, so it doesn't take an engineer as myself to run this. But pull your pins, and there's 2 quick release pins. Flip your ladder anchor to whatever side you want to use, and then push your pins back in, and then you're safe to climb again. So it's really a simple, quick process. Any user, there's no installation after the initial installation to where it would hinder a user from wanting to take it on or off based on the job site. So we're really trying to change user habit and make this to be a common accepted practice every time you climb a ladder. There's no thinking I need to put this down first or I need to prepare the job site. I just put my ladder down and go. And that left my clicker. So just looking at the past before we move to the future, we started this prototype and concepting validation back in March of 2016. It's been kind of a long road from there. From that point, we got production samples in the beginning of this year. What most of that time frame was spent on was product improvements. Once we had that initial concept and that initial prototype, we did a lot of improvements to accept more ladders and be more generally acceptable and easier to use by the user base. We had our first production run begin the first of this month. We'll hopefully have production samples here in about 2 to 3 weeks, and we plan on launching June 15th, so keep an eye out for that. Looking at some of the competitive landscape right now, we've got 2 main competitors. They range anywhere from $100 to $160. We're currently planning on sitting at the $129 range. We're still a little flexible on what that price point will be, but we think that that puts us kind of right square in the middle of the landscape. And our solution is vastly different from the 2 direct competitors I mentioned there, one of which is on the side, and ours is a lot more easier to use, and it's going to be more highly accepted by the workforce. Looking at some of the customers, really we've got 3 that we're going to be trying to hit right away. First is your industry professionals. So you're looking at your roofers, painters, window washers, guys who are going to be using these every day, this product every day. Second is going to be your your consumers, your homeowners. As we all saw, there's a lot of people out there who have ladder injuries that do not work in a trade where you have to be on a ladder every day. So we want to make sure that we hit those customers as well. And then finally, safety professionals. For the cost of one ladder anchor, or excuse me, 852 ladder anchors, you could cover one medical expense based on a ladder injury. Looking at some of our sales channels, obviously we'll start off with direct to consumer. It's going to be the quickest and most efficient way to get to or in front of customers. So that's looking at Amazon, our own personal website, and then similar type paths. We're currently partnering with a couple retailers. I was in Chicago this past weekend. While there, we signed our first retailer in Big Rock Supply. They're a large Chicagoland roofing roofing contractor supplier. Others we're looking at, safety companies, insurance companies. You guys hopefully have shown that there's a pretty big ROI potential for this product in terms of any company that could incur a ladder-related injury and ladder-related injury expenses. Finally, looking at big box retailers, that's kind of a long-term play, and we're not too excited about going there right now, but hopefully at some point we'll get there. Our biggest problem moving forward is going to be the advertising and education campaign. Before this, probably none of you knew how big of an issue this was, and if you did, please come talk to me because I'd love to know how you know that and who you interact with on a daily occurrence. But our biggest problem is going to be how do we get this product in front of people and let them know that it's out there. And first and foremost, we'll hit that with social media. We're currently doing a sweepstakes, so if anybody would like to win a ladder anchor, feel free to go to ladderanchors.com/sweepstakes, and we'd be more than happy to have you win one. I was recently at an open casting call for Shark Tank. Obviously, the free advertising has been valuable. And then finally, we'll be doing a viral video on launch to where you can buy a certain amount of views for that. So, real quick, future plans. We're launching June 15th. I know I'm out of time, so I'll hurry this up. Obviously, our biggest push is going to be through market penetration education. We're also looking at industry standards to try and have this be standard on job sites through unions, any other path that we can to get this to be something that's accepted and expected on a job site. And pretty much I'm just going to end there since I know I'm out of time. So with that, thank you. And yeah.
Give him a round of applause.
Nice presentation.
Great, thank you.
Your product is, the big benefit obviously is safety.
Right.
And you mentioned that it's easy, user-friendly, but how will you ensure that people use it properly?
So a lot of that comes to changing user behavior and user habits. First and foremost, that's going to be going through, that's tough to answer because there's a difference between, and it's kind of like insurance. You should have insurance and you should use it because you know something could happen. And long term, getting those customer habits to change is going to be tough, but I think we can drive that through, one, purely the numbers, and two, if you get into leadership and your safety professionals especially, most large companies are going to have some kind of safety department, and just like the same concept of wearing safety glasses or hard toe shoes, if they can start pushing that, that's going to be a big path for us forward.
I always like videos.
Videos are good too.
Yeah.
So.
And what is the life of the product? How long would I expect it to last?
Right, so depending on use, we've seen, and we expect anywhere from 3 years on heavy use. With the softer pad, we went with a softer shore rating of rubber so that you get a higher coefficient of friction. But on the flip side, you get higher wear rates with that. For a homeowner usage, you're probably seeing 5 to 10 years just based on your 1 to 2 times you use it to clean the gutters or put up Christmas lights.
Congratulations on having something that's dumb, darn simple. It's easy to understand. It seems to me the level of difficulty is going to be relatively low for professionals and relatively high for consumers, because I don't think I have this problem unless I know somebody that has a tragic story or a bad story. Can you make enough of a business if you just go B2B, or you're wildly successful in the contracting world, or is it not big enough to do that?
It's definitely large enough. You look at some of the numbers from workplace injuries back on the earlier slide. I think it was somewhere in the range of 80 to 90,000 a year injuries, just purely on the contracting at work numbers. you look at those, I mean, you've got multiple industries that this affects. You're looking at roofing, window washing, painting, electricians. You know, every time you see someone with a ladder on their truck going down the road, that's a potential customer. And I think really that's going to be our main push, and as I mentioned earlier, for customer base. Your business to business is going to be our main, cream of the crop, and meat and potatoes customers. Direct consumer is just going to kind of be the nice side business, because as I mentioned, when you're selling insurance, it's going to be a lot easier to sell it to someone who uses it every day rather than someone who uses it once or twice a year.
Sure, I completely agree. The B2B side has work comp issues and all sorts of things that are already wrapped around this, so I get that. What would you sell? You said 129.
Yes, sir.
That's a retail price. That's a B2B price. That's what is that?
Yeah, so that's retail. Working with wholesalers, we're looking at retailing anywhere between 79 to 89.
I see.
So compared to, and from my talks with them, that's well above their GP that they normally want to pull in for their gross profit margins.
Interesting. And is the way to sell this thing is you need one of these darn things for every ladder you have, so you don't worry about moving it?
Yep. So one of the long-term goals I didn't really get to talk about is looking into selling ladders with this already attached from factory at some point, either through our own company or partnering with somebody else. But yes, you would need one for every ladder.
One more question. You said you had a patent.
Yes.
What specifically is patentable here that matters to competitors?
So the utility patent is based around the connection method to a ladder. It covers both how you can do it on the aftermarket side, connecting to the ladder shoes, and it covers just connecting to the rotating ladder shoes on a ladder. Our second patent we're working on covers how you would attach it based on from factory to where you wouldn't have to do any install work.
Cool, thank you.
We're going to go ahead and open it up to audience questions. Go ahead and get your hands up. I think I've got one here in the center. Oh, got a few actually.
I love the idea of you partnering with an existing ladder company because obviously they already have distribution and they have everything that you don't. You don't right now, right? So why wouldn't that be your first path of least resistance?
So we've made overtures to them. We've tried to reach out. We've never really gotten a clear answer why they wouldn't want to patent or have some kind of partnership, especially on the larger player side. This is only me speculating, but I think the initial reason why they don't want to is that it opens themselves up to litigation, saying why did you not have this beforehand, and why is this now being offered outside of your realm, and why is this just now making it to the market when it's such a simple idea. And right, so we don't currently claim anything. We've gone, like, all the numerical calculations, and so I'm an engineer background. I design cranes for a living, so if I'm not keeping you safe from climbing up, I'm keeping you safe from something falling on your head. And all the numerical calculations that I've done and all the initial testing validate all my claims in terms of increased slope and tip resistance. We're currently waiting to work with a third-party laboratory, either SGS or similar, to get validated numbers that we can then go and claim in the market, but we don't want to make any outwardly claims right now that we're going to increase safety by a certain percent. So kind of a data-driven point.
Got a question here on your right in the back.
I happen to run a big painting company, and my wife's our safety administrator. So
Perfect.
We are familiar with all the different products on the market. My biggest question when I saw your videos and the website and everything, one of the most common safety issues with a ladder is uneven ground and using some sort of leveling device or pivot to, so what do you do in the instance of unlevel ground?
Right, so this product really doesn't address that, and that's not what the design intent was to do. So you could use a combination of the two if that's so suited your needs. We obviously don't want people to span, like, let's say 2 cinder blocks to use as your base, but you could do that if you needed to, especially if it's relatively within 5% level ground. You're going to be able to really kind of span any gap, and that's being such an oversized product. It gives you that flexibility to work on one uneven and 2 unlevel ground. Right, and so the problem there becomes is how do you, and yes, the short answer. Long answer is how do you incorporate that on the design side to where you can still accept 99% of the ladders out there on the market, which has been our toughest path forward is acceptance just based on ladders. They're not the same. They range in a large amount in width and length of foot, but that's definitely something we're looking forward to in the future if we can sell it with a ladder already attached from the base.
Question up front.
So it sounds like you permanently attach this thing to the ladder. So can you explain how that's done? But before you do that, have you researched with all these ladder accidents, how many actually happen from the ladder bottom slipping away, as opposed to people doing stupid stuff like putting it against a branch on a tree, or the previous questioner, which is sideways tilting and things like that. And the last question I have is, have you thought about what the proportionate cost increase is compared to the cost of the ladder, and whether they will be pushed back?
Yep. So I'm going to answer these out of order. 40% of all ladder-related injuries are based on a ladder slipping or tipping out. So a majority of them are. Now, how many of that is due to someone doing stupid up top? At that point, it's kind of, we're not worried too much about it, because if you're reaching way over and it tips, well, if you're 30% more solid on the base, you could do 30% more stupid stuff up top. Not saying you should, but you could. So to go back to the initial question, this is semi-permanently affixed. It's 4 nuts, and then 4 retaining clips. So to go back to your question a little bit, yes, I could take this on and off of individual ladders and replace it. Our goal is to not have to do that, just so that you're driving that user habit of, I don't have to do anything, I don't have to add an extra step to my workflow, I just have to put it on the ground and go. So there's no change in terms of like drilling holes, there's no extreme difficulty in adding this to a ladder. Finally, looking at the cost, as I talked a little bit about for our competitors, there's a wide range, and normally these products skew towards the higher end of that $100 to $160 range. Your average ladder comes out to about $180 or $190 for your homeowners, but when you look at commercial users, it's looking about $220 to $230 based on the higher ladder rating. So yes, it's about 50% of the cost of your ladder, but the bigger and more important question is, what is that in terms of your safety numbers? If you have even one ladder injury a year, what's the correlation between $200 or $129 versus $110 grand?
Question here on your left.
I've learned from personal experience, anytime I'm in a position of trying to educate the market, I usually fail. And whenever I see an entrepreneur tell me their path to success is educating the market, I tend to cringe. Now, there are many instances where entrepreneurs know more than the market and is attempting to share their knowledge into the market with their solution, but it's not often a successful business model. So whenever I see this, I ask the question, and for you, I'm asking the same question: why doesn't the market already know they need your product? And so I wonder, is there really a problem? Because, for instance, a lot of the commercial job sites are regulated by, OSHA-type regulations, by workers' comp when these accidents happen. So if those systems were on fire, they would be coming to entrepreneurs like you. Now, I like your idea, so I'm asking this in the spirit of cooperation. I'm curious, why isn't the market coming to people like you to solve this problem?
So I hope I didn't oversell that. We want to educate the market in terms of homeowners and consumers. When you look into the actual contracting world and your commercial market, they actually are kind of coming to me. So it's funny, there's always the jokes about sliding into someone's DMs when you want to talk to them. Both my retailers have slid into my DMs and been like, hey, we want to retail your product. So they've actually come to me, and that's it was kind of affirming to me going to Big Rock Supply this past weekend. As I mentioned, they're the largest Chicagoland retailer, and they sell a lot of safety-related products to roofers. And I think there's definitely the problem out there, and they know of the problem. I just don't think they have the right solution for it. And the fact that we have 2 direct competitors also kind of helps that as well. We might have to educate the main homeowner and the larger market, but the people who do this day in, day out know the potential for risk and injury.
Got another question here in the center for you.
Tell us about your insurance. How hard is it to get insurance, and is it a, excuse me, is it a significant portion of your cost of goods sold?
Yeah, so I've got a great insurance guy. He's third row on the right here in the brown jacket. So if anyone needs insurance, there's your guy. It actually wasn't too hard, and if you guys want to learn more about that, you can speak to him. I was surprised at how low the premiums are going to be for. I've got $2 million aggregate, $1 million in occurrence rate, so it's obviously lower, but we have a couple things to bring that down as well. We did not set huge sales numbers for this initial remaining of the year for Q3 and Q4 post-launch, but we also did a lot in terms of liability mitigation, working with a great lawyer team out of Schicardi and Bacon to try and mitigate some of our liabilities moving forward, making sure that all of our paperwork, T's were crossed and I's were dotted in terms of everything from installation to user instructions to all your danger markings. So I don't know if that accurately answers your question, but perfect.
All right. Last question. What can we as a community do to help you?
Great question. So obviously with our launch coming up in about half a month, 15-ish days, help us out on social media and to blow that message up when we have our launch. We're on Facebook and Instagram primarily. If anyone has any great insights or resources for social media marketing, I'd be happy to hear from you or to get those from you. That's something I don't have much background in and could definitely use the help with. Also looking at contacts, if anyone knows any retailers or roofing or painters or window washers, I'd be more than happy to talk to them. Not only for trying to get this accepted by them, but to see what the best paths forward and how to reach out to that market and get introduced to them. And then finally looking at future product ideas. If anyone here has any product ideas that are related to ladders, outdoor use, garage, tools, hardware, my background's actually in product development, and we're always happy to bring on new products. So that's about it.
Give Joe a big round of applause. All right, guys, thank you so much for coming out. Before I close, a lot of you come up and ask me, man, how do we get more connected and get involved in this community? We have people here called caffeinators. If you could, please stand up. Joe, we've got a few of you. Please stand up. Raise your hands. Everybody, these guys are going to help you get connected, and obviously you can come talk to the organizers as well. And then next week for our presenters, we have Porch Light Plans and Accelerate Tech Learning. Please be here. We would be glad to see you. Have a wonderful Wednesday, guys.